Hello and welcome to today's webinar, which is titled, What's New in AppDynamics for SAP? My name is Alyssa Sarmiento, and I'll be the moderator for today's event. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. First, I am obligated to share this legal notice slide, so here's that. And now we'll continue on. Moving on, note that the console you are looking at is completely customizable. Feel free to explore the widgets at the bottom of your screen. You can also move or resize any of the windows you see open by dragging the bottom right corner. This will be useful as we go into the demonstration, so definitely enlarge the slide view at that time if needed. For the best viewing experience, we recommend using a wired internet connection and closing any programs or browser sessions running in the background that could cause issues. Webinars are bandwidth intensive, so closing any unnecessary browser tabs will help conserve your bandwidth. If you have done these things and are still experiencing issues, whether it's with sound or the screen seems frozen, please refresh your browser, as that will usually fix any console issues. And if you continue to have issues, please reach out to us through the Q&A widget that's on the left side of your screen, and I'll try to help out there. And speaking of the Q&A widget, we invite you to submit any questions you have during the webinar through there. We'll answer as many as possible at the end of the presentation, and anything we aren't able to get to live, we will try to answer offline. And lastly, this webinar will be recorded, and you'll receive a link to the recording in the next 24 hours. Feel free to share the recording with your colleagues. Moving on to the presentation, our speaker today is Jonah Cowell, Vice President of Market Development and Insights from AppDynamics. In his role, he helps to drive the company's product roadmap and vision while developing entry into new markets. To see his full bio, you can expand the speaker section that's on the right side of your screen. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jonah.
Great. Thank you so much, Alyssa, and it's great to be speaking with everyone today. Appreciate you all joining for an update on what has transpired in the last 4 or 5 months since we launched our SAP product. So hopefully you will get a lot of insights and see some new functionality. Just a little background. When we launched this product in late April, we delivered another webinar, actually, that you can see as well. If you'd like to get a basic understanding of the broader AppDynamics story and how the SAP monitoring fits into it, we recommend that you take a look at this webinar from May, and it'll be in the resources box on the webcast. So some of the things I'm going to speak to you today is really a really basic overview of the base features of AppDynamics for SAP. We are doing monthly releases, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we delivered in our last major release, and also some of the things that we're building going forward. I'm going to touch upon our new functionality to monitor in-depth in SAPGUI applications and how to do monitoring and diagnostics. We'll give you a full end-to-end view of how this looks and how this works. And then I'll go into our release cadence and how we're delivering new innovative features going forward. So a little overview of AppDynamics for SAP. Like I said, please view the webinar which was delivered earlier that's going to go much more in depth on the base features and functions. The goal of the application is really to help with identifying and troubleshooting SAP business applications. So these are applications which are built upon ECC, and they are written in ABAP code. This is really focused on these specific platforms, which can be quite complex. They've oftentimes been used for a very long time, and downtime is not only very critical to the business, but also can be very expensive to the business. What we found before we started building this product is that although there are great monitoring solutions delivered by SAP in the form of Solution Manager, it doesn't really look at the depth inside what's happening in the code that your developers are writing or third-party applications which are running inside your ECC system. The second challenge is that oftentimes there are many alerts because of the use of static thresholds, and the notification of these alerts typically only go to the basis team and do not come back into the broader IT operations organization. And then finally, as you know today, every system is interconnected with other systems, and SAP is extremely interconnected in most enterprises. And really understanding the business context, when someone goes on your website and places an order, how does that interact with your SAP system? These are the three main areas that we wanted to solve for when we built this product. And so with AppDynamics for SAP, we not only give you the troubleshooting tools, being inside those transactions, understanding what's happening in the ABAP and the database side, but also doing so with our dynamic baselining that's part of the AppDynamics platform. The same concepts apply to our standard agents where we capture snapshots of transactions when we start to see problems, and we really provide an overall view of what's happening across the systems when you're trying to identify and troubleshoot a problem. Using our health rules, we can easily integrate into existing enterprise workflow tools, whether you're using a ServiceNow or a Jira or a PagerDuty. We integrate into those natively, so it makes it much more seamless in terms of working with your existing tools for your workflow. And then finally, the real interesting part of what we deliver is this flow map or this topology view of what's happening across the components as that business transaction executes. And just a really quick overview of a few of the base features that we provide in the product is that the basis team actually has control over this agent, how it's configured, how it's running. It gets installed as a standard transport, and it has its own custom namespace and transaction codes as well. I also did want to include the fact that we just completed our certification with SAP, our premium certification that includes support for running our software on both ECC-based systems and the newer S/4HANA-based system. So with this certification, we're fully compliant with SAP. We've gone through rigorous security testing with SAP as well, which is part of the premium certification. So we'll be posting more details on that on our blog as we get the finalized paperwork in for the certification. The other feature that everyone really likes is being able to see this application view or application topology. So in AppDynamics, we have this flow map that shows you all of the different components. We can include multiple languages, whether you're using SAP-built Java applications, you're building your own applications, or other SAP technologies interacting with one another. And I'll show you how we also work with SAPGUI in the demo coming up. The first thing that you do when you set up AppDynamics is define these business transactions. So these are the critical end-to-end views that you want to have in order to measure the critical things that your application is delivering to the business. So defining and viewing these, including all of your OData calls, ABAP calls, and custom functions, we can provide those in terms of the context of the business transaction. And then the thing that probably really helps the ABAP developer and the basis team is this code level visibility, where we can look at a transaction and we can start drilling into what's happening in that transaction. So if I take a look at all of the different executions of this transaction, these are what we call snapshots. Here I've sorted it by response time, so I'm looking at the slowest snapshots. And you can see here the one on top took way too long, so we can actually start drilling into it, see exactly what was happening in terms of the execution, and even go one step further than just looking at the performance, but drilling into exactly how it was called in terms of the URL. We can look at the parameters passed into the RFC function, for example. And then we can even go one step further and look at which of the ABAP statements are actually running slowly, which SQL calls are running slowly, and identify exactly where the problem is occurring. So this makes it much easier to not only isolate the problem to specific transactions, but start to understand why they're slow. These are all things that are part of the base product that we've been shipping now for the last 5 months. I do want to touch upon some of the new things that we have come out with. The really exciting one I will save for last for our demo. But some of the other things that we've been improving, the thing that we will demo is our SAPGUI monitoring, where we can actually take a look at transactions specifically in SAPGUI from the dialog processes, looking at them in terms of business transactions. So we can actually group or look at individual T codes. We can do auto detection here, and we can even go really deep into what was happening, exactly what was clicked on in the user interface, the database tables that were interacted with, and also looking at outgoing calls, whether they're web services or RFC. I will show you this in action in just a couple minutes. The other thing is part of the AppDynamics for SAP technology uses a native agent to communicate back to AppDynamics. On Linux systems, we install this on the operating system. It actually gets installed via the transport, and it's completely automated. On non-Linux systems, we use a gateway, but with this automated deployment, we can upgrade it and manage the SDK automatically. It's all done when you update your transport with the new code, and then automatically everything is updated for you, so making it easier to deploy, upgrade, and manage the solution. The other thing that we delivered is CRM monitoring. We've actually had several customers testing and using this, but we can support BSP technologies, and we can automatically create business transactions for standard BSP pages. So this is something that's really helpful, as there is a lot of SAP CRM out there. In fact, I believe it's the second most popular CRM system in the world. So if you're using this, encourage you to check out this new functionality. And then we actually added some additional levels of security into the product. So we now support SSL all the way from end to end, and not just from the system to the AppDynamics controller. And we have also started supporting Windows on top of Linux for native deployment. So both of these are available now, but the automation on Windows is still work in progress. So these are some of the things that we've delivered in the last few months, along with performance enhancements and other bug fixes. But the one that's been really exciting is this SAPGUI monitoring. So I'm going to kind of walk through a sample scenario. What you're going to see here is a fictitious manufacturer of chocolate, and we're going to be taking an order on the phone through SAPGUI, and we're going to have that view of the customer service person sitting there taking an order, and you'll actually see it executing. So as we start out here, we're inside of SAPGUI. And we're going to find, we're going to open the specific transaction code for the application that we're looking at. So this is going to bring up that order form specifically. And this is a standard purchase order form, so we're going to fill this in. This is a sample, but, everyone needs to order their chocolate, so it is definitely something that we can all relate to. So we're going to fill in all of the associated information. We're going to order a kilogram of chocolate, 5 kilograms of chocolate, and just fill in the rest of the form. What you'll notice is that now that we're actually submitting this, you'll see that it's extremely slow. So this is something where the first initial submission and check is taking a long time. This is obviously unproductive. We finally get some messages back, and then we continue to submit this transaction. As we go through this process of kind of waiting for the SAP system to actually execute, this is the type of thing that you would see in a help desk ticket come in. My transaction is very slow. I was trying to enter a purchase order. This is what I put into the form. And you'll see it's even slow to finally commit the data here. And so what would typically happen here is that there would be a ticket opened. It would go to the ops team, then it would go to the basis team, and then they would have a look in AppDynamics. So this is the basis team now investigating. What you're looking at here is a few different systems. We have a HANA system, an ERP system on ECC, and then 2 Java applications. We're going to drill into these slow transactions. We're going to try to find the issue here. And once we look in here, we can actually filter by T code. So if we know the T code of that transaction, which we just type in here, we can look at all of the executions. We can see a lot of these are very slow, over 10 seconds. So this is definitely the problem that we're looking at. And then in order to drill down further, we know the time which we just executed, so we can open this up and actually look more in depth at why this was running slowly. So when we open the transaction, then you will see the additional detail that we collect on that. So in this transaction, the flow map's not very interesting because with SAPGUI, it's only one connection from the client to the server. But here you can see all of the details that we're collecting. We know the user, the client, how much database time was spent. We know how long it was to actually generate and execute, how much time we spent in the database reading in terms of rows. And then we actually can see the top tables down at the bottom there. So the ones where we selected a lot of data that were particularly slow. And we can also actually see the top SQL statements all the way on the bottom as well. So this really gives you the ability to understand in depth why this was slow, what was happening, what are we doing to the database that maybe makes this slow. When we take this one step further, we can actually drill down into the individual execution. So the table name's not that interesting, but let's say I wanted to take this data to my DBA and have them dig in deeper. Maybe there's an Oracle DBA that is managing this database, or if it's running on HANA, it could be the basis team. We could actually look at those details. So when we open that database execution, we not only see the actual execution, but we can also determine the function modules that were called. And so in this example, I'm going to show you how we would take this and actually give it to the ABAP developer to isolate exactly where the slowness is coming from. So once we open the details from the snapshot here, you'll have to bear with me one moment. then we will get this additional detail. So we can actually see the program that was run here specifically, and we know exactly what module that is. So if we take this information, we can actually go into SAPGUI and execute this specific function and find exactly where that program is. So now we're doing a search in the source code for this particular line of code that was executed. And we can actually see exactly where it was found, and we can see the SQL code behind this form that was executed that was slow. So it actually makes it very easy to go from a slow form or a slow page into the exact function module that was called and where the slowness is. So this really helps you isolate all the way down as an ABAP developer. So hopefully you found that helpful and start to understand that end-to-end view. So the last thing I wanted to touch on is to share a little bit about our release cadence. So we are right now doing a major release every quarter, and we're doing minor releases, which can include some functionality, but generally are focused on bug fixes. So what we're looking forward to this month is a bug fix release in October, and then we have a big release in November that includes a bunch of new functionality and capabilities. We're going to have some great stuff to show you on how we're taking the SAPGUI monitoring to the next level. We're actually going to start showing it on the flow maps, and we're going to do some great new things that customers have been asking for. And so with that, I'm going to open this up for questions. And Alyssa, if you would like to help me out, that would be wonderful.
Awesome. That was great, Jonah. Thank you so much for that great presentation. And then, so as he mentioned, it is time for Q&A. We've gotten a lot of questions already in the queue. However, you can still submit as many questions as you want, and we'll spend the next 8 minutes or so answering as many as we can. And if we aren't able to answer your question live or we do run out of time, we'll definitely try to reach out to you offline to make sure that you get the answer that you need. So let's get started. All right, Jonah, how many customers do you have for AppDynamics for SAP? Are any of them in production?
So we have over 15 current customers that have purchased the product, and we're growing pretty quickly there. It's only been in the market for about 5 months, so it's still relatively new. We do have several customers in production, and there are more implementing in production every day.
Okay. Another question. Does your product run on the SAP Cloud Platform?
So the SAP Cloud Platform is a very broad set of actually very different clouds themselves. We do support many of the SAP Cloud implementations. That does include HEC or the Enterprise Cloud, where S/4HANA and ECC can be run. We also support the Hybris Cloud as well. So it all depends on which cloud platforms you're using. More than happy to dig in deeper if you have specific questions on that one.
Another question that has come through is, can you tell us more about the certification? Which certification did you get? When will it be official?
Okay, so we did just recently finish this, as I said during the presentation. I'm looking to get official paperwork from SAP this week or next week. In terms of the type of certification, we have a premium certification with extra security verification that SAP performed for the ABAP add-on for both ECC and S/4HANA. So we're fully certified on those platforms, and we'll be able to share the details shortly with the rest of you. Thanks.
Awesome. Sounds cool. The next question is, do you have anything specific to monitor business objects enterprise reporting applications through their Java?
Yeah, so the shorthand for that one is BobJ, and we can monitor that using the standard AppDynamics Java agent. Now, when you are making calls from BobJ into ECC, those do use the JCO connector, and we have a specific extension for our Java agent that tracks those calls, those RFC calls from BobJ into your ECC or S/4HANA system. So we definitely support tracking those transactions and monitoring the performance of them.
Cool. Okay, another question. So we actually got like few variations of this question, so I'll put it together. So what are the advantages or differences of AppD over SAP Solution Managers?
Sure. So anyone that's running SAP in production is using Solution Manager. It does a lot of different things aside from monitoring. We do talk about this on the first webinar that we did a few months ago. The main difference is that AppDynamics looks at the end-to-end and transactional performance and provides much deeper diagnostics into Java and ABAP than what you would get with Solution Manager. So we really complement Solution Manager by providing visibility to both operations and ABAP developers and unifying your views across the SAP landscape and the non-SAP applications that are most likely interfacing with the SAP system. So it's really how do we get the teams to see what the other folks are doing, and how do we work together more effectively? So definitely complementary on that one. Thanks for the question.
Awesome. Okay. Does SAP's movement toward the Fiori UI with S/4HANA create challenges for AppDynamics?
It's actually great that SAP is moving into a modern web framework such as Fiori. Next month, you'll actually see us launch additional capabilities to make this work completely out of the box. AppDynamics does extensive monitoring on both the web user interface and mobile user interface with our end user experience monitoring products. And we'll be unifying those into the SAP side to make it very easy to implement end user experience monitoring and front end monitoring for Fiori applications. You can do this today already with a manual change in the Fiori application to add our JavaScript, but we're going to be adding injection into the ABAP agent. So definitely lots of questions about Fiori and the future path of SAP around the UI. So thanks for the question.
Great. Okay. Another question is AppDynamics for SAP only available for Basis.7, like 7.40 and higher?
So if you want to see code level visibility of the ABAP, it does need to be 7.4 or higher. We can definitely monitor older basis versions, but you will not see code level visibility. So that's definitely a downside. And this is just due to APIs that were introduced at that time that we can't access in prior versions. So thanks for the question on that one.
Cool. Okay. Just kind of want to do a time check for the audience and let you know that we have about 1 minute or so. I do want to recognize we have a lot of questions that have come in, and we probably won't be able to get through all of them, and so we'll definitely reach out to you offline if we don't get to you all. But I think for now I'll have 2 more questions left, and then for the rest we'll answer offline. So getting to it, can we drill down into ABAP code like we do for Java?
Yes, there are some limitations. For example, we only show the 5 slowest ABAP calls specifically. And this is covered in the first webinar. We will be enhancing that further, but today we do provide the code level visibility, but it's not as deep as what you see with our call graphs in Java yet.
Okay, great. And then I'm just looking, let me see which one to end with. I guess. Okay. What are the prerequisites for installing SAP?
So if you take a look in your resources or you take a look at our documentation, we do lay out the prerequisites in the documentation in terms of the versions of different SAP technologies that we support with the ABAP agent. And we're always updating that and adding new support as we improve the agent and work with new technologies with our customers. So happy to talk with you and see what we can do to help you solve your visibility challenges.
Hey, great. Thanks, Jonah, and thanks to the audience. You guys had a lot of great questions, and again, we'll definitely reach out offline. I'll gather all the questions that we weren't able to answer live and share that with Jonah, and you should be, you'll get an email from myself to get the answers that you need. So that since we are at the 30-minute mark of the webinar, that does conclude today's presentation. Just kind of like swinging off what Jonah had mentioned, there are resources on the left side of your screen. So definitely check them out if you haven't already. So we've got the webinar, the first webinar that we did a few months ago when we first launched. And that one kind of gives more of an overview if you felt like today was a little too deep and you want to get more of a kind of like intro. That's a really good one. There's a blog, and then also there's the documentation that Jonah mentioned. So you can click through all of those directly from your screen right now. Definitely, even if you don't need them right now, I would recommend to just click through since once we close the webinar, your screen will change. So yeah, take that time right now. And with that, I just want to thank, again, Jonah, thanks for your great presentation. And again, thanks you all for joining us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.